Hi again there, everybody, and welcome back to the Chipmunk of Power channel, back up and running after holiday hiatus. However, if things look a little different to regular viewers of this channel, that's because I am in a different location. I'm on the other side of the room because my normal filming location is being taken up by the Christmas tree. Right at this point, it is in fact the day after Christmas, and I love Christmas. I love it so much that it's a little depressing to have all the Christmas stuff up after Christmas, so I'm fine with ripping off that Band-Aid. However, they will not take the tree for recycling for a couple of weeks, so I'm over here now. I'm sure that was a fascinating glimpse into my life. I promise I'm moving on. Today's video is the next in the series of every listed bestseller on the oldest bestseller list I could find, which is Publishers Weekly, although technically I think it was something before Publishers Weekly. But anyway, that's how it's listed in the Wikipedia, and that's what I'm going with. And we are finally up to, it's been like 15 books now, we are up to the bestseller of 1910. Bestseller here in America. I should also specify that. There's a lot of specifications here. Given how old a lot of these books are, so many of them have been lost to obscurity, which is kind of weird when you consider that they were the bestseller in their day. Yes, in their day. I mean, 1910, that's 100 and some years ago. Yeah, okay, a little while ago now. But still, they were that popular. And sometimes the reason is that it's just subject matter, or the story's told in a way that it's not really going to take nowadays. I get that. Then again, a lot of classics are told in the style of their time. So it's kind of weird what books stand the test of time and what don't. A quote-unquote great novel with great subject matter might last longer, but who decides that? Like, how do we as a collective people come together and say, no, this book better than that book? Okay, that's probably a subject for another video, but it just hit my brain and I ran with it. Okay, so yeah, I got distracted again, sorry. Back to the subject at hand, I promise. The bestseller of 1910 here in America, according to Publishers Weekly, was The Rosary by Florence L. Barclay. Or is it Barclay? I'm never quite sure what that's spelling. The Rosary was published by G.P. Putnam Sons, 1910. It clocks in at 389 pages. The novel is dedicated to Angela, which is the first name of the author's youngest daughter. More's the pity there are no illustrations in this edition. However, my particular copy that I got on eBay was previously owned by one Miss Maddie Madison, with the date October 21st, 1910, which I presume is the date of receipt. This would have been a brand spanking new edition at the time, and it's still in great shape, so probably has had no owner since. It also appears Miss Madison put in one of her own monogrammed stamps to further mark this book as hers. This, presumably, young lady was very proud of her belongings. Now, the book itself was written by Florence L. Barclay. She was born December 2nd, 1862 in St. Helier, Jersey, the Channel Islands. A highly religious woman, Barclay at first thought she would pursue a career in music, but gave it up when she married the Reverend Charles Barclay. That said, she kept more than busy by not only having 8 children, but she also ran Bible classes, mothers' meetings, Friday night entertainments, and besides which, she had the hobbies of playing organ, swimming, and cycling. On top of all this, she took singing lessons with Blanche Marchesi of the French Opera. Health problems in her 40s took her to bed much of the time, so she began writing. Her first book, Guy Mervyn, was actually penned in 1891, but sat untouched until she again took up the pen to start anew in 1908 with her novel, The Wheels of Time. The Rosary was completed the following year, and it was a big hit. She wrote 11 books in total, the last being a short story collection which was published posthumously in 1923. She sadly passed away in 1921 due to complications while undergoing surgery. As said, The Rosary was a big hit. As to adaptions, Wikipedia states that there have been 5 in total, but it does not list them all. We do have a French adaptation entitled Le Rosaire from 1934, and also a Mexican version, El Rosario, in 1944. And before these, there was a 3-act stage version in 1926 in Paris. Sunday Circle magazine is listed as having had a serialized version put out 25 years after the novel was first released, but there's no link to it. Suffice to say, this novel was enduringly popular for many years after it first came out. Now, as to the story. The story is set in England and centers around one Jane Champion, also known as the Honorable Jane. Her name is well chosen, invoking both plain Jane, which she and others freely state that she is considered quite plain, at least due to popular opinion, as particularly of the time. And she can be considered quite a champion, especially of others, but in more ways than one. Apparently she is not of memorable looks facial-wise. She is taller than the average Gale, and thusly she is also a bit more robust. One passage here indicates her weight as being roughly around 165 to 170 pounds, which really tracks with her height and her being kind of a sporty gal. So she's not pretty, and she's not a girl's girl, which means that she's basically consigned to the role of friend and confidant. Women can talk to her fine, but she gets along more with the lads when they want a shoulder to cry on or a second for tennis. She has been proposed to, but never in earnest, never through love, and she has accepted her lot. Her life takes a turn at a dinner party when she is called on to perform a song, and she displays that she not only has an absolutely exquisite voice, but her performance causes one of her male friends to see her in a different light. His name is Garth, which took me quite a bit of adjustment throughout the novel to really wrap my head around. Now, Garth is an artist, well known, and quite attractive himself, so his name has been linked with a lot of ladies, particularly the beautiful ones that he paints. However, he's never really had the hots for any of them. He's looking for something deeper than skin level. Now that his love for Jane has been, I keep thinking like achievement unlocked, Jane is unprepared for somebody to love her out of earnest and just really can't believe that this is true. And he really can't blame her. She also does have feelings of reciprocation, but she's unprepared for those as well. She decides that the best thing to do is to let him down easy for both their sakes. Only later does she realize that she was wrong to do this, and she's ready to run back to him. However, in a really soap opera turn, Garth is blinded in an accident. So, since she turned him down already, if she goes to him now, then he will believe she is only doing it out of pity, which is something that could potentially drive a wedge further between the two of them. So, what to do? Well, they have a mutual friend who happens to be a doctor, and Jane consults with him. It so happens that a trained nurse has been assigned to stay with Garth and try to help him adjust to his new life. Jane, being most capable in basic nursing, having actually done some in the most recent war, takes the place of the nurse and manages to convince Garth that she is in fact someone else. She is also able to bring him out of the dark, as it were. At the same time as they go along, he is able to convince her that his love for this Jane person is very much a true and real thing. It takes some time, 379 pages to be exact. But at the end, she is able to reveal herself at last. They are reconciled, they get married, and all is well with the world. This is not a complicated plot by any means. It's a tiny bit religious in tone, particularly at the end, but it's not enough to become a sermon, which very few people, even at the time, would have enjoyed. And there are a few of the usual prejudices, again of the time, about what constitutes manliness or womanliness and all that type of thing. But overall, the book is not heavy-handed. And you root for the heroine because she is just such a gosh darn good person who is trying her best. So now that she finally has the chance for romantic love, she's working so hard for it, and you really just want her to get there. So it can be a bit dramatic, but not too much to deal with. And now I will do the traditional reading of a few passages that jumped out at me. This book is set in England, but I'm not going to attempt an English accent, first of all, because I'm not that good at it, and second of all, because somehow, this doesn't usually happen, but somehow, even though this was clearly set in England, my brain was not processing it as being set in England, so I'm not hearing these voices with accents. First off, a little bit about our Jane. Jane Champion had no close friends amongst the women of her set. Her lonely girlhood had bred in her an absolute frankness towards herself and other people, which made it difficult for her to understand or tolerate the little artificialities of society or the trivial weaknesses of her own sex. Women to whom she had shown special kindness, and they were many, maintained an attitude of grateful admiration in her presence, and of cowardly silence in her absence when she chanced to be under discussion. But of men friends she had many, especially among a set of young fellows just through college, of whom she made particular chums. Nice lads who wrote to her of their college and mess-room scrapes, as they would never have dreamed of doing to their own mothers. She knew perfectly well that they called her Old Jane, and Pretty Jane, and Dearest Jane, among themselves, but she believed in the harmlessness of their fun and the genuineness of their affections. and gave them a generous amount of her own in return. This is just a quick little section where Jane is describing her singing lessons. Let me tell you a lesson I once had from Madame Blanche. I was singing Bemberg's chant Hindu, the passionate prayer of an Indian woman to Brahma. I began, Brahma, Dieu des croyants, and sang it as I might have sang Do, Re, Mi. Brahma was nothing to me. Stop! Cried Madame Blanche in her most imperious manner. Ah, vous Anglais, what are you doing? Brahma c'est un Dieu. He may not be your God. He may not be my God. He may not be your God. He may not be my God, but he is somebody's God. Jane had not come through a dozen seasons without receiving nearly a dozen proposals of marriage. An heiress, independent of parents and guardians, of good blood and lineage, a few proposals of a certain type were inevitable. Middle-aged men, becoming bald and gray, tired of racketing about town, with beautiful old country places and an unfortunate lack of the wherewithal to keep them up, proposed to the Honorable Jane Champion in a business-like way, and the Honorable Jane looked them up and down and through until they felt very cheap, and then quietly refused them in an equally business-like way. 2 or 3 nice boys whom she had pulled out of scrapes and set on their feet again after hopeless croppers had thought, in a wave of maudlin gratitude, how good it would be for a fellow always to have her at hand to keep him straight and tell him what he ought to do, don't you know? And, yes, pay his debts and be a sort of mother who doesn't scold kind of person to him, and had caught hold of her kind hand and implored her to marry them. Jane had slapped them as they ventured to touch her, and recommended them not to be silly. This is the part where Jane overhears Garth describing her. It was a curious experience for Jane to hear herself described in Garth's vivid word painting. Until that fatal evening at Shenstone, she had been remarkably free from self-consciousness, and she had no idea that she had a way of looking straight into people's eyes when she talked to them, and that was what muddled up the silly little minds of women who say they are afraid of her and that she makes them nervous. You see, she looks right into their shallow, shuffling little souls, full of conceited thoughts about themselves, and nasty, ill-natured thoughts about her, and no wonder they grow panic-stricken and flee, and talk of her as that formidable Miss Champion. I never found her formidable, but when I had the chance of a real talk with her, I used to be thankful I had nothing of which to be ashamed. Those clear eyes touched bottom every time, as our kindred over the water so expressively put it. Garth describing Jane again, another little piece to her character. Once, continued Garth, with the gleeful enjoyment in his voice which always presaged a story in which Jane figured, there was a fearfully silly little woman staying at Overdene when a lot of us were there. We never could make out why she was included in one of the Duchess's best parties, except that the dear Duchess vastly enjoyed taking her off and telling stories about her, and we could not appreciate the cleverness of the impersonation unless we had seen the original. She was rather pretty, in a fussy, curling tongs, wax doll sort of way, but she never could let her appearance alone, or allow people to forget it. Almost every sentence she spoke drew attention to it. We got very sick of it and asked Jane to make her shut up. But Jane said, "It doesn't hurt you boys, and it pleases her. Let her be." Jane was always extra nice to people, if she suspected they were asked down in order to make sport for the Duchess afterwards. Jane hated that sort of thing. When they finally do get married, there is a humorous moment. The characters here are, of course, the clergyman, the Duchess, who is a relative of Jane's. There's old Marjorie, who is caretaker of Garth. There's Dr. Rob, who is an acquaintance of the main doctor, here unnamed, and Flower, the wife of the main doctor. This was not in the rubric and proved disconcerting to the clergyman. He threw up his head suddenly and inquired, "Who giveth this woman to be married to this man?" And as, for the moment, there was no response, he repeated the question wildly, gazing into distant corners of the church. Then the Duchess, who up to that time had been feeling a little bored, realized that her moment had come, and rejoiced. She sailed out of her pew and advanced to the chancel step. "My dear good man," she said, "I give my niece away, having come north at some considerable inconvenience for that express purpose. Now go on. What do we do next?" Dr. Rob broke into an uncontrollable chuckle. The Duchess lifted her lorgnette and surveyed him. Marjorie searched her prayer book in vain for the Duchess's response. It did not appear to be there. Flower looked in distressed appeal at the doctor, but the doctor was studying, with grave intentness, a stenciled pattern on the chancel roof, and paid no attention to Flower's nudge. And that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this little look at the bestseller of 1910, and do feel free to check out the playlist to see what other bestsellers there have been so far that you may have missed. While we're at it, I've got a ton of other videos. Check those out too. None of them are any more spectacular than this one. I know, I'm even off center in the frame, but I wanted you to have something to look at. There's books behind me. I know I always like looking at books behind people and wondering what they are. Oh boy, we are stuffed full here. All my shelves, all my cupboards are like this. And I keep buying more books. Oh well, that's a problem for future me. I will see future you next week, hopefully, if you tune in. You will, won't you? And we'll have another one of these next on the list coming soon at some future date. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a wonderful new year. I hope as best you can. I mean, really, we never know, do we? Just get in there and try your best, champ. If we all just try our best, it could make a difference. Who knows? I'll be pulling for you. See you next time. Bye now.